time. I've definitely noticed more probably like in explicit racism through like different policies, and just the way that like students and staff and faculty who are a part of marginalized groups feel, that they feel like their voices aren't really heard and that they don't really feel that sense of belonging on campus. And even for myself as a person of color, trying to find other people of color is kind of difficult.
Let's begin by discussing the demographic profile of our student body and full-time faculty. Over the past few years, there haven't been too many shifts in our enrollment trends. The clear majority in our student body has consistently been white. Other than gradual changes in the proportion of our minoritized groups, we can't really conclude that our campus is any way becoming more racially diverse.
What about our full-time faculty? Surely there is a greater level of diversity there. Unfortunately, that is far from being the case. The majority of our professors and lecturers have been and continue to be white.
In addition to the lack of racial diversity on this campus, there have been several bias incidents that highlight racist behaviors.
Here are just a few examples of what has taken place within the boundaries of our own campus. The year 2016 is perhaps the year in which racist incidents dominated SCU conversations. In one of those incidents, 2 males smeared blood on a wall in a Casa Italiana elevator and used the same blood to draw a swastika sign on a poster promoting the LGBT community. The knocking down of wooden silhouettes representing the Ayotzinapa 43 students and teachers who disappeared in Mexico during a protest of alleged government corruption marks yet another racist incident that SCU witnessed in 2016. The students accused were presumably drunk, but does that justify their actions? This affected several students severely, for they saw themselves reflected in the Ayotzinapa 43.
Both of these racist instances were investigated as hate crimes and portrayed in a 2016 theater production titled Welcome to Claridice. The play told the story of these 2 racist examples as a basis to open up discussion about other racist incidents the audience had experienced and been silenced.
Another way in which racism has been manifested at Santa Clara is through several offensive, race-themed parties that are culturally insensitive and outright offensive. Among these was a south of the border themed party in which students dressed up as janitors, gardeners, and gangsters. Others include a fresh off the boat party and the annual Cinco del Viso celebration.
Social media has also played a critical role in the history of racism at SCU. Today, several Instagram accounts use the app to highlight many of the experiences students of color face at Santa Clara. Yik Yak was an application launched in 2013 which allowed users to make anonymous posts for those within a 5-mile radius to view. This became problematic at SCU when students began using the platform to make racially degrading posts about their fellow peers.
So I have learned of these experiences through some of the work that I have done with my students, specifically student activists, specifically in the context of the Unity 4 movement that started in 2015 as a result of a very explicit racist yik yak that was posted on an anonymous social media app by students on this campus. And when primarily Black and African American students on this campus complained and wanted to hold these students accountable, the university administration was not able to do so because they were not able to identify who these students are. And that sort of started and catalyzed the Unity 4 movement that very much centered on students raising awareness about the various forms of institutional racism, discrimination, microaggressions, and color blindness on this campus, and try to implement structural changes at the university to address these issues of racism and to also raise awareness about the student of color experience here at Santa Clara University.
As horrible as these incidents have been, What has the school done to address them? Frankly, not much. They tend to be brushed aside in hopes of being forgotten.
Students, however, have done much more to combat the racial injustices that arise on our campus. Their goal is to initiate a campus-wide dialogue that challenges both students and the administration to address racial concerns.
I think a big part of a lot of the issues that happen on campus when it comes to racism is just a lack of education and a lack of understanding of difference, whether that's race, ethnicity, and even other social identities like gender and sexuality. A lot of students, I feel come from very privileged backgrounds or just backgrounds that are very homogenous, and they haven't necessarily been in quote unquote diverse communities. And so, diversity here is not as diverse as we probably would want it to be or what many of us would think of it to be. And so I think a lot of times just not understanding the impact of, some of those incidents that happen, and kind of students not really understanding, what they say or what they do is very microaggressive and very, harmful to a lot of students. I think it just shows that there's a lack of general awareness and understanding that we as a university could do a little bit better on. There's so much transition, we're getting a new president, we're getting a new provost, and I think all of us, we just need to be more mindful of being genuine and intentional about the things that we do, that when we're talking about racism or homophobia or any of those things, it's not just oh, we're gonna send out a flyer and then it's checking the box kind of thing, right? That it's done, okay, we don't talk about it. It has to be humanizing in a way that we're actually talking to people, understanding their experiences.
There are several actions that can be taken, and some actions that are currently in development. For example, the Diversity and Inclusion Series is one action that's currently in process, and I hope that it will continue as more and more students come in. I would also like to see the diversity requirement to be increased from 1 to 3 or even more than that, because we need to be able to allow our students to develop those cultural critical perspectives and literacies around race, systems of power and oppression and inequity, and to have our students be more socially responsible and critically compassionate citizens and thinkers about these problems and their desire and social responsibility to want to address them.
Yeah, and it's hard because once you tell people that something's mandatory, they actually don't want to do it. But I think for the greater good, it should be, right? That we should, I feel all of us, whether it's students, staff, faculty, we're all invested in this campus for whatever reason. And if we really, genuinely care about one another, then we would want to learn about difference and the impact of things like microaggressions and racism and sexism and homophobia. And classism, all of the isms and obias. So yeah, I think it would be, and required in a way that it's not meant to be another thing to do, right? But required in a way that, how you guys have required classes that you have to take, that it's a part of the learning and it's a part of the social justice framework that we have at Santa Clara. And it's just, yeah, it should be rooted in, because it's a part of our mission and it's a part of why we're here. So yeah, it should be something that is just kind of innate and not oh, I have to learn about. So yeah.
I'm very hopeful that our campus will become a much more inclusive and diverse space, because Santa Clara University has a good core, right? It's rooted in these Jesuit values of social justice and accompaniment and building and making a better world. And we most certainly can do that and do contribute to that. And I would like for us as a campus community to come together and really do that work here on our very own campus to support our students of color, so that they don't have to experience these microaggressions that are not micro, right? That over the accumulation of experiencing them become very much oppressive and violent.